From the Smith Center in Chapel Hill, this is TarHeelIllustrated.com, or, of course, if you are watching on our fast-growing YouTube channel, that's Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm GHI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, actually right across the court over there. What's up, AJ? Our very own publisher, Andrew Jones.
Long time no see, man.
I know, right? Just haven't seen each other forever. Carolina losing tonight, obviously, is, I think everybody who clicked on this video knows by now, to Duke, 62-57. Obviously a big loss for the Tar Heels for a number of different reasons, which we're going to hit on a little bit later in this podcast. But AJ, I want to start with a theme that it seems like we've been talking about all year. I think we even said off camera, it's when you kind of break this game down, it in a lot of ways, it's just kind of the same thing. And the famous Roy quote gets thrown around all the time. Everything looks better when the ball goes in the basket. And tonight was a prime example of how bad things can look when the ball doesn't go in the basket, really, for both teams, because Duke didn't have a great shooting night either, really, overall, particularly to start the second half. But Carolina shot 26% in the second half, 30% for the game from the floor, and 21% from the game from three. And in a way, it's a miracle they only lost by 5. Like I said, I know Duke struggled to shoot it as well at times. It was a miracle kind of that Carolina was only behind by a few points at halftime too, based on the way they played and shot. But to me, it just seems like we've had so many of these conversations this year. And the game of basketball is pretty simple, but you can make it a very, very complicated game if you can't put the ball in the basket on a consistent basis. And again, that's just something Carolina didn't do very well tonight, did they?
No, and I will maintain what I've said for the last few weeks. It's not only whether the ball goes through the basket, it is how they go about getting the shots that either go in or don't go in. Versus Virginia and Florida State, they had a tremendous movement. They forced the defense to move, which creates openings. It gets the defense a little bit on its heels. The other night in Tallahassee, they had a lot of penetration kickouts for 3. Against Virginia, they had their best ball movement and body movement of the season, moving off the ball. Tonight, I mean, they slow down to a snail's pace.
Yeah, they do.
And they just get the ball, they back up, they run the set. And just like the first game, when 2 Tar Heels told me after the game, Duke knew everything they were running. And one of them even said it was simple, what they were running. Duke, when they sniff out the first option, Carolina has a tough time getting to the second and third options. And on top of that, the Tar Heels are not very good when they have to go into freelance, because I don't know how much I've been told they don't work on a ton. I don't know. They just struggle with freelance. And I think they get a little panicked on offense sometimes, which is why you get some of the shots you do. So they did miss a lot of open shots, I thought, in the first half. I thought they were getting some looks, but in the end, in the second half, they didn't. Like when they ran the set play, then we'll talk about this in the next segment, but the set play that they ran after the timeout with 43 seconds, that's a perfect example. They didn't execute it. So they're complicating matters by running stuff that's snuffed out. And part of the reason it's snuffed out is because the kids don't do a good job executing some of the basic things. It's mind-boggling to think that a team that was a lot of dudes in high school last year that watched Carolina beat Duke on this weekend in K's last home game, and then in the Final Four in the biggest stage ever that these two teams have played, come in here and beat basically that same group twice.
Yeah.
And when the game got to crunch time both times, they were the better team. They were the more composed team. They were the team that executed. The other team was the one that didn't. And I just think that speaks to the problems that Carolina's had consistently throughout the year. This is who they are. They're not a very good offensive team. They're not an efficient offensive team. They don't have anybody that's a really good perimeter shooter. I think RJ Davis should have taken more shots tonight. Armando only took 8. Again, I could bullet point 15 things for you, and it doesn't matter who the opponent was. To me, when you have to win a game to continue your NCAA hopes and not put yourself in a position where you have to win the whole thing in Greensboro, you got to find ways to get Armando the ball where he could score. Giving him touches where all he does is slowly dribble away from a double team, and then nobody's moving, so he doesn't see anything. He doesn't see white jerseys moving around, white uniforms moving around, and they slowly get out of the double teams. They get nothing out of it. They rarely get stuff out of the double teams. It's not so much his fault. No one goes to meet the ball. He kicks it out. The other guy's just standing there. You know, if you're leaving your man to go double, you're leaving your man open. But if your man doesn't move, and you're double end, you turn around, you just go right back to where you were. It's so easy.
Yeah, so easy to defend.
So there are a lot of things that they do that the approach needs refining. There's no doubt about that. And then the kids need to execute the approach more crisply than they do. And it leads to bad shots. Again, Go back and look at a lot of the threes they had against Virginia and against Florida State and even against Clemson to a degree. And look at how they got some of their shots tonight. They just didn't get them as fluidly tonight. Duke had a lot to do. Duke's an excellent defensive team. Really good defensive team. They challenge so much stuff in the lane.
They're so long,
I don't know what Carolina was on layups. I haven't looked at that part of the stat line yet. But I do know they were 9 for 28 against 9 for 28 against Miami on layups, I think it was. And that's not a really big team. This club doesn't convert at the rim. You know, they missed 2 dunks tonight. Caleb should have flushed that thing when he was fouled. I'm surprised the foul was called. And Pete missed a dunk. You get those 2, that's 3 points because Caleb got fouled and hit a free throw, or he hits the first free throw. It's a 3-point play, and that's 4 points right there. I'm looking up the scoreboard. It still says score 62-57. Well, if you get those 4 points, it's a 1-point game. Maybe the way the game's played later is different. Maybe when Carolina had that push where they 13-2 run where they took a 49-45 lead, if those 2 buckets had been converted, maybe it's 53-45, and then Duke, the younger team, gets into a little bit of a panic. So, look, I like the way they approached Saturday. I like the way they approached Monday, but I didn't like the way they handled tonight. They look like a team that hadn't been in this situation very often, and too often that's been the case, Jacob. And they're just not very good offensively. Caleb's had a terrible year. He has. He's not. People love to trash him. He's a good kid. He's trying. He's just sometimes he takes some bad shots, and when they're not falling, they're so much worse than when they are, or when other guys are hitting. If everybody's missing, Caleb's always going to get the most errors for his mysteries because honestly, some were just not the better shots. But Leakey took some questionable shots tonight. Pete airballed a 3 from the top of the key. Everybody had a hand in this thing. Everybody had it. Armando didn't convert around the basket like he should have. Leakey missed stuff around the rim. Their tips weren't very strong. Duke was the more physical team around the rim, which is why Carolina had issues with a lot of the chippies and stuff. So they weren't chippies if the other team's bodying you more. Yeah. They're not chippies then. They're contested shots. And Carolina just did a poor job with all of that. And you're right. It's amazing they had a chance to win the game. And it tells you a lot actually about the fact that they played hard. They played with grit. They had to resort to lunch pail stuff, but a club like this shouldn't have to resort to lunch pail stuff as often as this one has had to. We'll address it when the season ends, but there's a lot of things that have gone wrong that have brought them to the point where they are right now.
Yeah, I tweeted out early in the game so many times it felt like, and it's not the first game I've tweeted this out and really noticed this, especially over the last few weeks. To me, it's too stagnant on offense. And AJ, I'll say this real quickly. You've been covering Carolina in sports for a lot longer than I have, but I can honestly say in the 4 or so seasons that I've covered Carolina basketball, this is the only team I've really covered where on a big chunk of possessions during a majority of games, I don't necessarily know what they're trying to do. And to me, that comes down to an identity. When you go back to Roy Williams' teams, you knew what the identity was. It was pound the ball down low. That's number one. And let's get out on the floor and go. You knew what they were going to try to do to win games. I haven't really sensed that with this team. I know going to Armando is kind of the thing, but like you said, he only took 8 shots tonight. You're obviously not trying to go to him too much. He also gets double teamed a lot down there as well. To me, it's just been too stagnant, especially in the late kind of last few weeks stretch of this season when Carolina's really needed to win some games. I know they have won some games, but to me, I just haven't really seen a Carolina team like that. I don't really know what they're trying to do offensively at times. And I'm not trying to criticize anybody. That's just my observation. Well,
it is criticism and it's justified criticism. David and I are going to talk at length about this tomorrow night, Sunday night. We'll have that.
That'll be good. I'm looking forward to that.
About an hour. We're going to go in depth. We'll have that probably Monday on the site or here on our channel. And you should be on our site if you're just on the channel. Yeah. There's so much more over there. But it's the approach. I think the approach is a little bit flawed. It's especially flawed with the composition of the roster, or certainly of the rotation guys. It's a difficult. They had a really good stretch offensively when Armando was actually on the bench tonight, and it's because Pete, being the 5, was playing that handoff role. And Duke has to guard the handoff because Pete is decent enough at hitting the perimeter shot. He has to be guarded. He's also a pretty good passer. He could turn and find somebody. So they had some stuff off of that. They didn't score their first field goal in the second half until 13:45 left in the game. And then they scored 7 field goals in 7 minutes. And that was during that stretch. I'm not saying they're better off without Armando, and that's garbage. What I'm saying is the philosophy that Hubert has with a little bit more space. I thought the floor looked bigger during that stretch than in other stretches during the game. And that's what I'm talking about, the movement. When Armando gets the double and he's trying to dribble out, nobody's moving. This court looks really small.
So easy to defend. Yeah.
Movement makes the court look bigger. And I think that's one of the problems, and it's going to have to be addressed. It's going to have to be fixed. And again, it's a lot of its execution, but I do think some of the approach is a little bit flawed. Certainly with this composition, maybe next year, that composition, the approach will be fine.
Who knows? Maybe it will be.
David and I are going to go in depth on this and a lot of other things. People are going to want to definitely. I'm looking forward to. I haven't talked to him.
I know.
Actually, voice to voice in a while, so I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say.
Same here. That's one of my favorite podcasts out there. I love when you guys do one. Let's keep it moving. Second thing I want to talk about, and this is actually a stat that you kind of found, but it's really interesting. It kind of illustrates just how bad Carolina's been down the stretch against the Blue Devils this year. So in the final 4 minutes, essentially of both games this year, the one in Cameron and the one here in Chapel Hill tonight, Carolina's been outscored 14-1. Again, final 4 minutes in Durham, final 4 minutes tonight, combined 14-1 is what Carolina's been outscored in those minutes. And I mean, that just speaks to a team who down the stretch in big moments. It's so funny too, because they were so good at this last year, almost this time, last year, this is when this team it was the opposite. They always just kind of found a way to win. It hasn't really been the case in big games this year. They've kind of found ways to lose, for lack of a better word, and definitely in these last two Duke games, because they've had opportunities in both games, AJ. They had opportunities to win the game. It wasn't, again, they lost by 5 points tonight. It probably should have been even bigger when you think about how poorly Carolina shot and how poorly they played tonight, but they had an opportunity to win, and they didn't do it. You can't get outscored 14-1 against the Blue Devils in the final stretch of a game and expect to win. So I think that, again, illustrates how poor the shooting was. But it's interesting, too, because that bad stretch tonight came right after a really good stretch for the Tar Heels when they finally took the lead with what felt like forever. They didn't really lead much in this game. So, again, it just illustrates the poor shooting and the poor execution. Yeah,
they hit 5 out of 7 to take a 55-54 lead. RJ scored to take the lead. I think it was a bank off the glass or something. And then they missed their last 7 field goals. And Armando was 1 for 2 from the line. That was their only point. Tonight, over in Durham, it was 57-57 with 3:57 left when Nance hit his only basket. And by the way, he has 1 basket in each game. And then Duke scored 6-0, 6 points to close them out. Carolina didn't score. So that's 14-1 in the 2 games. Again, what I was saying a few minutes ago, this is a young team. Roach is the only one that had anything to do with those games last year. He's the only one.
Literally.
And the older guys that they brought in, like Grandison and Young, they're nice players. They help them. I thought Young does good stuff every game. Grandison gives them a little bit of bounce and stuff, but they rely on the pups, the new kids. And those new kids came in here, and they were the more poised team in both games. And I think that's a significant problem. You could talk about, well, they just missed a bunch of shots. Again, you could talk about whatever you want to hit on. The bottom line is, in these 2 games against Duke, the rookie head coach with a lot of rookie players, they were the more mature, they were the more composed team. They played like the smarter team in that stretch. They were the better team. And Duke is trending in a really nice way right now. And I thought Carolina was showing signs of beginning to trend, but it just didn't handle it well. I mean, they didn't run that set play well at all. I mean, I thought it was, I'll go back and look, but right over here, it looked to me like there were
3 guys in the same corner.
Yeah. So somebody hedged out on RJ, so they couldn't get the pass to RJ, and it would have been a contested 3 from there anyway. And RJ said that he was supposed to get the ball and cross court pass, skip pass over to Leaky, and then Leaky was going to decide basically what to do: shoot, drive. I mean, they drew up a lot of shots for Leaky today, which kind of illustrates some of the things too. I love Leaky; he's a great guy. He's an amazing ambassador for this program, and he's really improved his shooting. But he wasn't on, so I don't know if that would have been option number 1 or 2. I think RJ was option number 1, but it didn't work. They didn't execute it. He ended up driving and just had a mess right there. So this team should be better down the stretch. They should be more mature. They should handle things better. They actually had the 49-45 lead, and they were outscored 17-8 the rest of the way. That's been a problem all year. I remember talking to you or Brandon up in Pittsburgh 2 days after the bowl game. I go from San Diego to Pittsburgh, and Carolina's doing some really good things, and all of a sudden, boom, They collapse in the last 10 minutes at Pitt. They blow a 9-point lead. And that became a constant theme so often. A couple times here a few weeks ago, they went to a period, but they were sort of either maintaining the lead. A couple times they put their foot on the throat. I think against Clemson they did. But in a game like this, guys that have been in those stages, got to make plays. You got to convert.
Yeah.
You can't make your possessions more difficult by A, not running the sets the way they should be run. B, when the sets break down, this club looks like at times like they've never worked on that. Like they don't know they don't understand the idea of a freelance motion, which is what Roy ran so much. I'm a huge fan of freelance motion, teaching it because the guys learn how to play off one another when things break down. And we don't see a lot of that. And that was an issue tonight. It was an issue in those 7 shots. I'll have to go back and look at them. I think a couple were not contested. One was early in a possession by RJ. I thought it was way too early. And it was sort of a rush 3. He could have gotten that later in that possession. That was one of the possessions they absolutely needed to score. So what can you say? This is a veteran team. You have 23-year-old, 23-year-old, 22-year-old, 21-year-old, 21-year-old that play the bulk of the minutes. And against a bunch of guys who still have a 1 as the first number in their age.
Yeah, can't even drink.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not dogging the guys. It's just a bad sign. They know it. We talked to them after the game, Jacob. They know it. They're not hiding from it. I asked Armando, step outside the North Carolina uniform and be an analyst and, tell me what this team is. And this is who we are.
Yeah.
They're a team with a lot of potential, just hadn't reached it. Yeah. I think that sums it up.
Yeah,
and we saw it at the end of both games. I think that to me, those are the signatures of this season.
Yeah, 14-1 when it matters. It's just not going to win you many games, especially in the Duke Carolina rivalry. AJ, last thing I want to talk about, kind of what this means for the Tar Heels. Obviously, it goes without saying that Hubert Davis didn't necessarily agree with you when you told him this, but Carolina, they got to win in Greensboro next week, and they don't have to win 1 game, they don't have to win 2 games, they don't have to win 3 games, they have to win the whole thing to have a chance at making the NCAA tournament. And obviously, if you do win it, you're in, and that's basically what Carolina's kind of the situation the Tar Heels have kind of put themselves in with how poor they've been this season overall. And I'll say this too, AJ, because we said this, I think, right after the post, or maybe before the post-game interviews, we were kind of talking, and we said, I kind of jokingly said to you, we use the P word a lot. We use this process word a lot that we judge teams by, and we like to kind of see how things go. We don't like to jump the gun on things because you have to wait throughout the season to see how a team is going to evolve and where it's going to end up. And I kind of said to you tonight, hey, AJ, like on 3 things, I think we can kind of finally say, like, okay, like, we've been hitting at it, but I think this is finally who this team is.
And what did I say to you? And what was my response to you?
Yeah, you said, I forgot, you made an analogy to, I think, digging a hole or something like that.
Pull out a shovel, dig a 6-foot hole, take the word process, toss it in there, and then cover it up with all that dirt.
We won't bring it out until next August when football season starts.
No more process. No more process.
But again, I
this
think,
is a process-free zone now.
Yeah, it's the regular season's over. There is no more process. Yep. This is who this team is. They have to go to Greensboro and win the tournament to have any chance of getting into the NCAA tournament. I don't foresee that happening. Who the heck knows what's going to happen this coming week? But again, when it comes down to it, AJ, and Armando summed it up great. I think he kind of said something along the lines in his interview afterwards that, we put ourselves in this situation. We can't, he's like, maybe I'll feel bad for myself or our teammates in a couple months, but right now, no, we put ourselves in this situation and that's what we have to live with. So I think that sums it up perfectly.
When I asked Hubert, maybe I didn't ask it the right way. Maybe we know that sometimes he only listens for certain things. I get it.
I thought it was a fair quote. He made it sound like it was a narrative, and I didn't agree with that.
Well, he's not going to publicly put pressure on his team, but that's why I said the guys are saying, look, they got to win 4 next week. And my question wasn't, do you think you have to win 4 next week? My question was, so how do you communicate to them about just taking care of Wednesday when their mindset right now is the daunting task of 4? So that I went and asked it again, and he's not going to go there. He's not going to believe in it. Okay. Coaches choose how they handle things publicly. They do things differently in another sense. I do think it's something he's going to have to communicate with them, because this is an absolute reality that they have to win the ACC tournament, because right now they have no quad 1 wins, because when the next any net rating comes out, Virginia won't be 30 anymore. They'll be lower, even though they beat Louisville, because Louisville was 309. So they have no quad one wins. They play in the number 7 conference. They're 12-8 in the number 7 conference. They're the 7 seed in the conference tournament in a league that has teams that are going to be seated above them that may not even get in. So, yeah, they have to win the ACC tournament to get in. They have put themselves in a situation. We've been saying this all year long, and maybe this is an unfair tease to people who listen to us, watch us, read our work and stuff, although I don't think we're alone. But, this is what we do in the press room. You've heard it 1,000 times in the press room. We're talking about, well, but this club could ... I wonder how much could ... they foresee as being possible. Because obviously it's right after losing to Duke and so much was on the line. A very defeated group tonight. But I think this is tough to bounce back from, especially if they got to play BC on Wednesday. BC's a feisty as hell team, and they're going to get in their grill and they're going to frustrate them and make them uncomfortable. And I don't know.
It's hard to get back up. I think it will be at least. It's just
they're not a very good basketball team.
No, that's how the years worked out.
So many of us were wrong, but they were wrong too by saying championship or bust. I think the odds are very good that their season ends next week, because I don't think they'll take an NIT bid. They don't want to play in it. It'd be better just end this thing and move on. Get in the off season, get your roster management dealt with, get some decisions made, and move on. And God, trite phrase. I hate this phrase, but I'm going to use it anyway. They made their beds. They have to lay in it.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, I was trying to think of a phrase along that line that kind of wrap it up.
I know. Forgive me. I'll never say that again. I'll never write it. Forgive me for saying that, because, I sound like I'm scolding, but I'm not. It's just who they are. And the thing about it is, there's nothing that we could say that they would disagree with. They know it.
They're not naive. They're smart kids. They're not stupid.
This season up to this point has been one of the all-time clunkers.
Yeah. And again, it's not
unless they cut down the nets.
It's a fact.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, it's just a fact. A lot of people will say, that's harsh, but it's not. It is. It's just what happened.
Unless they cut down the nets in Greensboro, they're going to be the first AP preseason number 1 team since the field expanded to 64 teams for the 84-85 season to not make the tournament. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, only one preseason number 1 hasn't won a game in the tournament. That was 2005 Kansas, ironically. So the rest have won at least one game. Every one of them.
Yeah.
And this club season is more than likely going to end next week. If it doesn't, and they go on a run, they give us some great stuff to write about and talk about. It'd be a lot of fun. Yeah. And, there's still that hint of hope that maybe, hope that people have.
It's because of what happened last year. Yeah.
Because even the people who are so upset, and they'll stop and they'll say, yeah, but maybe. So I get that hint. I hear it from people all the time. Now I'll be interested to see what my email box and text, my phone's blowing up like crazy. I get, God knows what people are texting me right now, and the comments we get on our work. But I think we know who they are, Jacob. I think you're right. When you said, let's take the P word and toss it out. You notice I said P word. I didn't say the whole word.
Yep.
It's out. So next week it's going to be a jailbreak or the season ends.
Yeah. P word is being retired till August, AJ. I'm laying down the law on that right now. And we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. I guess this is our last regular season edition of our Three Things Post-Game podcast. I did, by the way, guys, these are sitting beside me right here. I did try the Oreo. I didn't try the Thins, but I did try the lemon Oreo, and I give it a 7 out of 10. Nothing to write home about, AJ. I won't be.
Okay, here's a prediction. Here is a low-hanging fruit prediction for you. The whole lemon Oreo thing ended today too.
100%. Yeah, I don't think you'll see a lemon Oreo anymore.
No longer part of the bloodstream.
No, definitely not. I think that's good because, again, 7 out of 10, I won't be buying it at Harris Teeter anytime soon. Yep. So we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Again, I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. We appreciate y'all watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And, of course, keep it locked to charlieillustrated.com. You can sign up for just $8.33 a month if you want to be a member of come and join our premium subscription. You get a ton of content over there as well. And AJ, let me shout them out too. I completely forgot to do this. Please forgive me, guys. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor on this Three Things right here, myperfectfranchise.net. Guys, if you want to put your your life and career in your own hands, Andy Ludicke's the guy to do it with. He's fantastic. Give him a 100% free consultation process about potentially opening a franchise. He is the guy to talk to. Links below to 2 podcasts AJ did with him, as well as the website. So go check him out if you want to put your life and career in your own hands. It's a great time to do so as well. Again, big shout out to myperfectfranchise.net. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks.